As winter chills set in, some countries are bracing for a season that threatens to freeze not only the air, but also their economies. For many years, Europe relied on Russian natural gas like clockwork. It kept homes warm, factories running, and the economy stable. Until 2022, Russia supplied over 40% of the gas imported by Europe. In Austria, this figure reached 80%, with supplies coming directly from Moscow, while Germany, the continent's largest consumer, purchased twice as much as all other countries combined. It all felt so reliable, some would say natural, even. That is, until February 24th, 2022, when Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. It flipped Europe's energy security on its head. Overnight, natural gas became more than a commodity. It became a weapon. Fast forward to 2023, and Europe has been working overtime to cut ties with Russian energy. Russian gas imports dropped sharply, from nearly half of all supply in early 2021 to just 15% overall. Countries rushed to diversify, securing alternative energy sources to avoid being left in the cold. But not everyone could adapt so quickly. Austria, for example, still relies on Russia for over 80% of its natural gas. And this reliance has come to be their undoing. Russia's dominance over Europe's energy supply has never been purely about economics. Europe has always relied heavily on Russian gas to heat homes, power factories, and keep its economy moving. But that reliance came with strings attached. And when Russia pulled those strings, the consequences rippled across the continent. In 2006 and 2009, disputes between Russia and Ukraine over gas transit fees led to complete supply cutoffs. The Yamal pipeline through Poland saw similar tensions. Even back in the 1980s, US President Ronald Reagan predicted this scenario, warning that the Yamal pipeline would hand the Soviets dangerous leverage over Europe. Looking back, he wasn't wrong. In the 21st century, Russia's pipeline strategy evolved. Projects like Nord Stream and Turk Stream were designed not only to supply gas, but also to bypass Ukraine, cutting out transit fees to its government and weakening Ukraine's economy. For the receiving countries, the idea of a direct connection to Russian gas was hard to resist. Europe, especially Germany, was happy to buy in, literally. And why not? A direct pipeline meant cheaper gas and no middleman. Let's talk about Germany for a second. The Nord Stream pipeline running beneath the Baltic Sea was endorsed by Russian President Vladimir Putin and German Chancellor Gerhard Schröder. Schröder was so invested that after leaving office, he joined the pipeline's board in 2005. By 2021, Nord Stream 1 was more than a pipeline. It was Europe's lifeline. It provided 2/3 of Germany's gas imports, making Germany the biggest customer of Russian gas by far. Meanwhile, Gazprom, a Russian state-owned company, was quietly buying up significant stakes of almost a quarter in Germany's underground gas storage, securing even more control over the country's energy supply even further. Then came Nord Stream 2, a new pipeline that promised to double the supply. However, this project was controversial from the start. Was it just a practical solution to Europe's energy needs? Or was it a geopolitical weapon, giving Russia even more control while weakening Ukraine and Eastern Europe? The US, Ukraine, and several Eastern European countries were firmly against it. But Germany, under Angela Merkel, pushed it forward. Completed in 2021, Nord Stream 2 was set to double the pipeline's capacity to a total of 110 billion cubic meters per year. But it never delivered a single cubic meter of gas. In February 2022, as tensions escalated with Ukraine, Germany broke off its approval just 2 days before Russia's full-scale invasion. Later that year, sabotage rendered much of the Nord Stream system unusable, with the question of who was responsible still unanswered. With that, a chapter of Europe's energy dependency on Russia came crashing down. For Russia, it wasn't just the Nord Stream explosions. The invasion of Ukraine changed the way they wielded their energy dominance. In simple terms, Russia wasn't done playing hardball. For the first time in history, it weaponized its natural gas supply on a massive scale. In May 2022, when European buyers refused to pay in rubles, Russia retaliated. The Yamal pipeline to Poland was shut down. The Gryazovets-Vyborg pipeline to Finland cut off. By September, Nord Stream 1 was closed indefinitely, coinciding with the G7's price cap on Russian oil. The message was clear. Energy was now a tool of war. The Sokranivka transit point, which carried nearly 1/3 of the Russian gas flowing through Ukraine, was another casualty. Ukraine's gas operator, GTSOU, cut off supply from this route as it passed through Russian-occupied Luhansk. Meanwhile, Russia kept slashing its pipeline deliveries. From maintenance excuses to political disputes, the flow of gas reduced gradually to historic lows. The numbers are there. Russia's gas exports to the EU dropped from nearly 146 billion cubic meters in 2021 to just 61 to 62 billion cubic meters in 2022. By 2023, the flow declined even further, with only 10 billion cubic meters exported in the first 5 months, a huge difference from the 62 billion cubic meters in the same period of 2021. Russia's share in Europe's gas supply was reduced to just 15% by the end of 2023, and its once dominant position was fading fast. Now Austria is in the hot seat, or rather the cold one. Just days ago, Gazprom, Russia's state-owned energy giant, announced it was cutting off gas deliveries via Ukraine. Why? Austria's energy company, OMV, refused to pay after winning an arbitration case worth $230 million. For Austria, which still depends on Russian gas for the majority of its energy needs, this is a wake-up call. This wake-up call is heard loud and clear. Before Gazprom cut off supplies to Austria, OMV had been receiving approximately 17 million cubic meters, MCM, of gas per day. But those volumes aren't just sitting idle. Instead, they're being rerouted. New buyers and middlemen across Europe have stepped in, quickly snapping up the unsold gas, ensuring it still finds its way into the market, according to companies, sources, and data. In addition to this, just hours after Gazprom announced its decision to stop gas deliveries, Austrian Chancellor Karl Nehammer faced the cameras to reassure his people. "We will not be blackmailed by anyone, not even the Russian president. We've taken precautions to ensure we can defend ourselves," he declared confidently, and Nehammer wasn't bluffing. Austria's energy giant OMV backed him up, reporting that the country's gas storage was more than 90% full, enough to supply customers even if Russia cuts the flow completely. And Austria isn't standing alone. On the contrary, it is part of a larger European effort to reduce the continent's dependence on Russian energy. Since the start of the Ukraine war, Europe has been scrambling to adapt. Countries have stockpiled gas, rationed supplies, and struck deals with alternative suppliers, like the US and Middle East, to secure liquefied natural gas, LNG. Putin may have thought that by cutting gas supplies, Europe would bend under pressure. Instead, the move has united the continent against him. After the invasion of Ukraine, the European Commission launched its Repower EU plan, setting an ambitious goal to end dependence on Russian fossil fuels by 2027. But it's easier said than done. Embargoes were imposed on Russian coal in August 2022, crude oil in December 2022, and refined oil products in February 2023. However, gas remained tricky. Many EU nations like Hungary and Slovakia still depend on Russian pipelines, making an outright gas ban nearly impossible. Instead, the EU introduced voluntary measures, like a 15% reduction in gas consumption across the bloc, extended now through March 2025. Europe's move to rid itself off Russian gas has been painful, but it's clear this divorce is final. And like many breakups, it's costly for both parties. For Russia, it's been devastating. Gazprom's gas exports to Europe have nearly halved, and its earnings have taken a nosedive. In 2023, the company posted a net loss of $6.8 billion, the first since 1999. Although high gas prices in early 2022 softened the blow initially, the loss of European customers is hitting hard. And for Europe, cracks remain in their armor. Russian LNG imports to the EU have surprisingly increased, generating an estimated $8.2 billion in revenue in 2023, money that continues to fund Russia's war effort. The EU is now considering new measures, like limiting or even banning Russian LNG, but the debate is far from settled. And while this debate is ongoing, the impact is already being felt. Let's rewind to 2022. Experts, like those at Goldman Sachs, warned that if Russian gas supplies were completely cut off, households across Europe could see their energy bills skyrocket by 65%. You'll be paying around $500, which is equivalent to $512 per month, just to keep the lights on. For industries like chemicals and cement in Germany and Italy, the warnings were even harsher. Gas usage might have to be slashed by as much as 80%, threatening jobs and production. On the economic front, things looked scary. The fallout was expected to be severe, with the Eurozone's economy projected to shrink by more than 2%. Italy and Germany, two of the biggest economies, were bracing for GDP declines of 4% and 3%, respectively. Instead of folding under the pressure, European nations came together in a united effort. Governments and industries collaborated, and after enduring months of nerve-wracking price surges, the situation began to improve. Gas prices, which had been spiraling out of control, started to decline significantly. By December 2023, gas prices in the EU had dropped to 34 euros per megawatt hour, nearly 9 times lower than the crisis peak of over 300 euros per megawatt hour. Fast forward to 2024, and the recovery was starting to show in the numbers. In the third quarter of the year, the euro area economy grew by 0.4%, doubling the growth rate of the previous quarter. Italy and Germany, which had been expected to struggle the most, saw their economies slowly regain footing. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. While the immediate crisis has been averted, Europe's energy challenges are far from over. Energy-intensive industries like steel and glass manufacturing are still feeling the pinch, and the heavy reliance on controversial subsidies has caused political tensions within the EU. Countries are struggling with a beggar-thy-neighbor mentality, where some policies aimed at securing energy supplies come at the expense of others. The truth is, Russia could still use its gas supply to target the few European countries still dependent on its pipelines. If you add that to the unpredictable nature of global LNG markets and the possibility of political shifts we're seeing in the US, like the return of Donald Trump to the presidency, it becomes clear that Europe's energy security is still on shaky ground. But the silver lining is that the chaos of 2022-2024 has taught Europe some tough but valuable lessons. First, energy independence isn't fully possible, but building stronger systems is. Investing in renewable energy, strengthening supply chains, and ensuring energy flows freely across borders are all essential steps. Now, the big question is, who should be in charge of keeping Europe's energy secure? Should governments step in more and take control, or should the markets handle it? Right now, it's a balancing act. Another issue is infrastructure. If energy security is part of Europe's defense strategy, should energy companies and pipelines be treated like national assets? And then there's the European Union. How can it make sure all countries are playing fair and not leaving anyone behind with selfish every country for itself policies? These are huge questions that Europe needs to answer soon. If you found this breakdown helpful, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and stick around for more updates on how the global economy is evolving. Thanks for watching and see you next time.